Jess Phillips is back in the headlines, and this time, the outrage is impossible to ignore. A single revelation has set off a firestorm, exposing a level of political neglect that has left communities reeling and victims demanding answers. As new details emerge about her role in the ongoing grooming gang scandal, the public is asking, how much longer can those in power turn their backs when lives are at stake? What really happened behind closed doors? The answers are more explosive than anyone expected. But before we dive into the details, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. Once again, a Labour minister is at the centre of a political firestorm. This time, it's Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips facing fierce public and media backlash after a revelation reignited outrage over Britain's handling of the grooming gang scandal. This isn't just another minor mistake swept under the rug. This is an issue that has shaken communities to their core, left survivors desperate for justice, and prompted national soul-searching over how such evil could go unchecked for so long. So, when a government minister appears to brush off a council's urgent plea for help, people pay attention, and they get angry. Here's how it unfolded. Back in December, Oldham Council, deeply troubled by its past failures and the rising public pressure for answers, reached out directly to the government. The council's chief executive wrote to Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, urgently requesting a meeting to discuss how Oldham could improve its safeguarding services in the wake of shocking revelations about local grooming gangs. They sought government leadership, guidance, and most importantly, accountability. But instead of the decisive action and support they were hoping for, they received a polite but dismissive letter, not from Cooper herself, but from Jess Phillips, the new Minister for Safeguarding. The message was clear. Neither she nor the Home Secretary could meet with the council's leadership, citing demands on their time. In other words, they were too busy. Phillips suggested that instead of speaking with her or Yvette Cooper, Oldham should look to other areas that had already commissioned successful inquiries into similar scandals. She encouraged them to engage with other regions, which would be more helpful at this stage. Then, she wished them success in restoring public confidence in their child safeguarding services, a line that many found hollow and patronizing given the severity of the issue. If this had stayed behind closed doors, it might have quietly faded away. But just 2 weeks later, the national media exploded with coverage of Oldham's grooming scandal, thanks in large part to a GB News investigation. Suddenly, the public spotlight was shining directly on Jess Phillips and the Home Office. The question everyone was asking: how could the very people in charge of protecting vulnerable children be so unwilling to meet with a council begging for help? The backlash was immediate and fierce. Elliot Keck, head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, who uncovered the incriminating letter, spoke for millions of frustrated Britons when he said, "The millions of Brits who have been horrified by the scale of this problem will be livid that Jess Phillips couldn't spare an hour to meet with Oldham Council to discuss the issue back in December. This is one of the most pressing issues in her brief, and taxpayers will be wondering why they're paying her wages if she is willing to refuse such a basic demand on her time." For the families affected and those fighting for justice, it felt like yet another slap in the face, proof that even now, with everything that has come to light, politicians still don't grasp the urgency or the human cost of these scandals. Yet, under intense scrutiny and growing public pressure, something changed. With the media now in full pursuit and outrage mounting, the government suddenly found time in their diaries. Fast forward to February, and ministers who were previously too busy were now sitting down with Oldham executives to discuss a way forward. By April, in new correspondences, Phillips was referring back to when they last met in February, proving that only headlines and public fury could finally move the needle. But the damage had already been done. The entire episode left a bitter taste, not just for the people of Oldham, but for anyone who has watched year after year as politicians promise change and then fail to deliver until the pressure becomes too much to ignore. So what are we left with? A safeguarding minister who ignored urgent pleas until it became politically inconvenient to continue doing so. A government that only acted when forced into a corner by the press. And a public that's once again reminded that when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable, too often, those in power still treat it as an afterthought. This latest revelation isn't just a political misstep, it's a damning indictment of a culture that waits for outrage before it acts. For Jess Phillips, the backlash is only getting louder. For the victims and their families, the fight for justice and real reform continues. And for the rest of the country, this is yet another dark chapter in a scandal that shamefully refuses to end. In other news, a failure of leadership and bureaucratic paralysis is forcing record numbers of experienced officers to quit UK policing. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman has claimed this is a growing crisis. Braverman spoke exclusively as South Australian Police launched a campaign to recruit hundreds of disillusioned British officers. The former Home Secretary said the brain drain of experienced officers was increasingly leaving forces here without the key skills needed to police effectively. A delegation from South Australia Police arrived in the UK this week for a series of recruitment sessions in key cities. South Australia's Police Commissioner, Grant Stevens, appeared in a tongue-in-cheek social media ad standing in the sea wearing beach shorts, urging British officers to consider relocating down under. Commissioner Stevens is unapologetic about his search for British policing talent. His force has already recruited and trained dozens of overseas officers this year alone, and now, they're aiming to attract even more officers, not just from the UK, but also Ireland, Canada, and New Zealand. Stevens explained, "We've had a lot of interest from experienced police officers. So far, we've had 4 courses in our academy made up of international and interstate officers, and we're aiming for more courses throughout 2025. While Suella Braverman fully understands the desire for Australia to recruit from a pool of experienced officers, she believes it points to a crisis within British policing. Her comments come as record numbers of experienced UK officers consider quitting. A survey last month revealed that around 2/3 of officers questioned said they were either planning to retire, quit before retirement, or were weighing their options. Only a third said they planned to stay within UK policing. Braverman said, "In some ways, I'm not surprised by these figures. I think policing is going through a crisis of confidence right now. There's a failure of leadership at the top of the profession, and policing has become paralyzed to a large degree by bureaucracy and paperwork. In many ways, people aren't doing the job they signed up for." Former UK Chief Inspector Scott Collins, who moved to South Australia to continue his career, explained his decision, saying, "I was seeking a better lifestyle for myself and my family while still continuing in a career I really enjoyed. Policing has its complexities wherever you are in the world, but we all wanted to join to help people. What I love about South Australia Police is the relationship it has with the community, allowing me to get back to the core reasons why I joined. But as more officers choose to leave Britain for policing opportunities overseas, the deeper the retention crisis within UK policing becomes." Braverman concluded, "What needs to be done is we need to empower the police. They need to know they won't be thrown under the bus, whether by a chief constable or the collective commentariat, if they're doing their job within the law and reasonably. If we are losing that resource, it's very worrying, because we won't have the police officers to respond to violent incidents or riots. We won't have the resources to be deployed when there are problems." What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know in the comments section below. If you haven't yet, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more British content. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.